Hey, leading teen writers! We are back with a new book. We just finished Animal Farm, and 1984 is the next upgrade to Animal Farm. It's written by the same author, George Orwell. But where Animal Farm kind of seems like it was written for kids, it has a fable, allegory type style to it, and it's about animals on a farm. But 1984 is as real as it gets. It's really a different kind of story, but it's about similar ideas put into real life situations. And the thing we really need to go over today is the type of genre that 1984 typically fits into, and we call it a dystopian novel. Other dystopian novels can be like Hunger Games. If you've read Hunger Games, Hunger Games is also a dystopian novel. What does it mean, dystopia? Dystopia is a type of fake place. It doesn't really exist, but it's a fictional construct. Dystopia is a type of society that usually characterized by a lot of negative things like oppression, mass poverty, public mistrust. The government or the people in power are doing really bad things that are putting the rest of society in harm or danger. Or they're taking away people's basic rights. That's what a dystopia is. You don't want to live in a dystopia. Now, in a dystopian novel, the author is criticizing that society. They've created the society. Why didn't they just create a perfect society? Well, because they really want to critique the social and political problems of our world and to show if we continue on this route, we will one day become just like this dystopian society. Now, 1984 was not written in 1984. 1984 was written uh, maybe 20 or 30 years, 40 years earlier, and Orwell was projecting what the future in 1984 would look like. Now, is he right? No, it's all fiction. But what he was trying to do was not really predict what would happen in the future. It was more of a warning of the kinds of trends that he saw going on with people in power. So, some themes that are going to come up in 1984 before we start reading today. Individual opinions are silenced. I want you to think about how that might have happened in Animal Farm a little bit too. People were not, or animals were not allowed to speak their minds once Napoleon was in power. Same thing with 1984. Theme number two, rewriting or changing the facts of history. So Winston Smith, who is the main character, works in a place where he's actually supposed to change what the newspapers say. He goes back and he changes history books so that it reflects whatever the person in power wants you to believe about what really happened in history. A third theme is unquestioned loyalty and obedience to the person in power. And this is not just, something that you do when you're in front of other people. In 1984, there's someone called Big Brother, and he watches you even in your house. So there's nowhere you can hide. You have to always be showing that you surrender to the political party that's in power. Let's go to the next slide. There's a lot of manipulation in this book from people in power, just like Napoleon was manipulating the animals through propaganda. Same thing here. What's a little bit more important in this book is surveillance. People are being watched so that they will give full allegiance to the person or party or idea that's in power. There's a lot more social pressure to believe in the party ideas and ideology. And the third strategy that is something similar in Animal Farm but takes a whole new level is the idea of erasing someone's memory. Winston Smith, the main character, literally cannot remember his past. Somehow the party is able to erase the things from his past, including his memories with his family, because they want you to think that the party is your family. Let's go ahead and start reading chapter 1. Let's dive in together. You will be able to access this PDF on the Google Classroom. There will be a link this week to the PDF. And I will show you the reading schedule at the end of our lesson today. Let's go ahead and dive into chapter 1. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. 13, that's 24-hour time, so that would be 1 p.m. Winston Smith, his chin nuzzled into his breast in an effort to escape the vile wind, slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions, though not quickly enough to prevent a swirl of gritty dust from entering along with him. So remember, as we were reading Book Thief and Animal Farm, we think a lot about literary elements. I want you to think about setting here. What we are introduced to is a bleak kind of beginning. It's cold. And I am going to have you do an activity where you're going to find all the quotes that show that there's kind of a bleak, depressing, gray, dark, sad tone and mood to this chapter beginning, and of course through the novel as a whole. But let's keep going. The hallway smelt of boiled cabbage and old rag mats. At one end of it, a colored poster, too large for indoor display, had been tacked to the wall. It depicted simply an enormous face, more than a meter wide. The face of a man of about 45, with a heavy black mustache and ruggedly handsome features. Winston made for the stairs. It was no use trying to use the lift. That's the elevator. Even at the best of times, it was seldom working. And at present, the electric current was cut off during daylight hours. It was part of the economy drive in preparation for Hate Week. The flat was 7 flights up, and Winston, who was 39 and had a varicose ulcer above his right ankle, went slowly, resting several times on the way. On each landing, opposite the lift shaft, the poster with the enormous face gazed from the wall. It was one of those pictures which are so contrived that the eyes follow you about when you move. Big Brother is watching you, the caption beneath it ran. So I want you to remember, in books, the narrators speak and they discuss things that we don't know yet. We don't know what Hate Week is. We don't know what the economy drive is. Apparently, this is like, okay, if they're trying to save money, so they cut off everybody's power. Okay, so they're like, all right, this week we are making sure to save that money. So there's a lot of things we don't know who Big Brother is. But remember, when you're reading a book, that suspense, they're not trying to give everything away at once. You have to learn as you go. He has some sort of ulcer, some sort of ailment. He is not showing that much activity, positivity. The narrator is really showing a lot of, things that are not so nice, right? Old rag mats. Why does he choose that type of description? Let's keep going just a little bit, then we're going to have an activity. Inside the flat, that's the apartment, a fruity voice was reading out a list of figures which had something to do with the production of pig iron. The voice came from an oblong metal plaque, like a dulled mirror, which formed part of the surface of the right-hand wall. Winston turned a switch and the voice sank somewhat, though the words were still distinguishable. The instrument, the telescreen, it was called, could be dimmed, but there was no way of shutting it off completely. He moved over to the window, a smallish, frail figure. the meagerness of his body merely emphasized by the blue overalls, which were the uniform of the party. His hair was very fair, his face naturally sanguine, meaning it's red, his skin roughened by coarse soap and blunt razor blades and the cold of the winter that had just ended. So we learn that he's small, frail, he's a little weak. He only uses, you know, it doesn't look like he uses very luxury items. Coarse soap, blunt razor blades, they're not even sharp. But we do know that he's part of the political party that's in power because he's wearing the uniform. And what we know is that there's an instrument called the telescreen that's always there, always in your house, always speaking and always listening. Okay, very interesting. Outside, even through the shut window pane, the world looked cold. Down in the street, little eddies of wind were whirling dust and torn paper into spirals. And though the sun was shining and the sky a harsh blue, there seemed to be no color in anything except the posters that were plastered everywhere. The black mustachioed face gazed down from every commanding corner. There was one on the house front immediately opposite. Big Brother's watching you, the caption said, while the dark eyes looked deep into Winston's own. Down at street level, another poster, torn at one corner, flapped fitfully in the wind, alternatively covering and uncovering the single word, Ingsoc. Ingsoc. I wonder what that means. We don't know yet. In the far distance, a helicopter skimmed down between the roofs, hovered for an instant like a blue bottle, and darted away again with a curving flight. It was the police patrol snooping into people's windows. The patrols did not matter, however. Only the thought police mattered. Who are the thought police? We don't know yet, but we can imagine they're people who listen and try to control your thoughts. Okay, well, we're going to stop here and do a little activity. Just from those first few paragraphs, we want to think about setting, characterization, and tone and mood. Because for homework, you guys are going to be creating your own first paragraphs of a dystopian novel of your choosing. You get to create one. And so, in order to do that, you really want to analyze how these elements are working in 1984 so that you can create a setting, you can fill it with characters, and you can decide on a tone and mood that's going to capture the dystopian aspect of your novel. So you're going to make your way to week 18, 1984 activity. The directions say to choose 5 quotes from just the paragraphs that we read today that reveal the not so nice parts about the setting or world that Winston lives in. Now, you're welcome to kind of continue reading a little bit if you want to check out other paragraphs and use quotes from those paragraphs. As you see, you have 5 blank spaces here. I just want you to copy the quote, right? We're just identifying, we're just scavenging for quotes that help us understand setting, characterization, and tone and mood. What is the not so nice, the dystopian parts about the setting? Now, remember, you can find the PDF under week 18 activity. You'll see the 1984 PDF, or you can use your own book for this. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. When you're done, go ahead and press turn it in on the Google Classroom when finished. Okay, great job with your activities. Now, I don't want to give anything more away in this lesson. I just want you to go and read chapter one for homework. Why is chapter one? I'm only going to be doing one chapter a week, and there's a couple reasons. Number one, this book is more difficult than the previous books that we've read. There might be new vocabulary or new ideas that really have to sink in. I want you to spend time looking up new words that might be confusing to you. And if there is a concept or a topic that you don't understand, doing a little bit of research to help you understand it or asking questions for me. Now, I want to go quickly over your homework. You're going to read chapter one and you're going to complete week 18 homework. Let's go take a look at what that looks like. So, this one's a little bit creative. 1984 is a dystopian fiction that illustrates a possible world consisting of mostly negative aspects of our society. A dystopia is a society characterized, like we talked about, by mass poverty, public mistrust and suspicion, a police state, or oppression. Most authors of dystopian fiction explore at least one reason why these things are the way that they are, often as an analogy for similar issues that are happening in the real world. So, whatever's happening in 1984, this is something that the author George Orwell was curious about that was happening somewhere in his real world. So your directions, you're pretending you're writing a dystopian novel about anything, and you have to write the first 3 to 4 paragraphs of the first chapter. Maybe throughout this whole 1984 unit, I will let you guys contribute more chapters to your dystopian novel as we go. In these paragraphs, right, you only have to do 3 or 4, but if you want to do more, you're totally welcome to. In these paragraphs, I just want you to create the setting, just like 1984 does. Create the setting that shows it's a dystopian novel. And whenever you're done, you're going to turn it into the Google Classroom. I also just want to briefly discuss our reading schedule. It's a little bit different than previous weeks. We do have 8 weeks total for this, but we're not reading the whole book. In all reality, this book is really difficult and there's a lot of mature topics. And so we're only going to be reading the first 8 chapters. We're even going to be skipping chapter number 6. When we're done reading, you're welcome to go off and read it yourself. But I do think it's a bit challenging. The chapters I have here are a perfect introduction to this book. If you want to continue reading it on your own, you're welcome to do that. But we're only going to be reading chapters 1 through 8, and we're going to have a project at the end. You can access this schedule always on the Google Classroom under week 18, which is when we're starting 1984. Here's a link to the PDF. It's also on the Google Classroom, but also here's a link to buy the book on Amazon if you don't have it already. Please enjoy 1984, even though it's a little bit depressing. It's so interesting and an incredibly popular book. So it's really great that you'll be able to talk to other people about it because a lot of people have read it. So enjoy, and we'll get together next week to discuss chapter 1.